Hi everyone, and welcome back to LL Sports TV. Hope you're all doing well. Now, I felt like I had to do this video after watching a video that was circulating online recently. It was of the former British and Commonwealth champion Frankie Gavin, 39 years old now, being knocked out in the first round of a bare knuckle fight. And that video was doing the rounds. And when I saw it, I got to admit, I was both shocked and saddened to see that. I mean, first up, I wasn't even aware that Frankie Gavin was participating in bare knuckle boxing. I was under the impression that he was retired and training fighters. I know he's been retired for quite a while. And secondly, I've got to admit, I felt very uncomfortable in watching, man. I actually felt quite embarrassed for him. And I was thinking to myself, I mean, is this about money? Is he coming back because he's broke? Is it about a fighter, a former fighter that just can't let it go? You know, a lot of boxers are like that. They just can't seem to come to terms with that their glory days are over and that the skill sets are no longer there. And it's always sad when you see fighters chasing that glory when, to all intents and purposes, it was over years ago. Maybe it's a combination of both. I don't know. But whatever it was, it's sad to behold, especially for a guy like Frankie Gavin, who was such a good fighter. I mean, Frankie Gavin back in the day was a really talented fighter. I mean, he's from Birmingham. Um, he grew up in Birmingham, took up boxing from a young age, and he was an outstanding amateur. And I mean, a really good amateur. Definitely one of the best amateurs to ever come out of this country. And I don't say that lightly because we produce some great amateur fighters in this country. But Frankie Gavin was definitely one of the best. I mean, he was known for his boxing skills, his ring IQ, his timing, his footwork, his judgment at distance. Very, very good fighter. And he has an impressive list of accolades as an amateur. And I'll just go through those briefly. He was a two-time ABA champion. He's a Four Nations gold medalist, Four Nations being the his home countries. He's a European amateur champion, which takes some doing. That's a really hard title to win. He won that. He's a Commonwealth Games gold medalist. Again, another prestigious accolade. In 2007, he traveled out to Chicago and he became the world amateur champion. That is a significant achievement. Not only that, he was the first British man ever to do that. And in doing so, by the way, he beat a Russian guy who, I think the guy's name was Tishenko, who was quite a formidable fighter himself. And I think prior to Frankie Gavin beating him, he'd not lost a fight in 4 years. So that's how good he was. And Frankie Gavin beat him to go on and win that title back in 2007. And I remember at the time that was big news. And Frankie Gavin, that was in 2007. Frankie Gavin was part of the Olympic team that travelled to Beijing in 2008, along with the likes of James DeGale, who went on to win a gold medal at those games, by the way. And also Billy Joe Saunders was part of that team. So was Bradley, a guy called Bradley Saunders, who was a good amateur as well. So that was a good team. And Frankie Gavin was seen as the most likely of those four at the time to get a medal. But unfortunately, it ended in massive disappointment because Frankie Gavin was unable to participate in those games due to him missing the weight. So yeah, that was a massive disappointment, as I said, not just for him, but also for the GB team, because Frankie Gavin was seen as a strong prospect for a medal at those games. So that was 2008, big disappointment. But he turned pro later that year. And I remember, because I think I was at the press conference for that. Frankie Gavin turned professional, him and a few other guys. And there was, much fanfare about how far he would go in the game. People was predicting big things for him. So he turned pro, I think he turned pro in October 2008. And by 2010, he'd won his first title. That was the Irish light welterweight title, I think it was. Yeah, he won that in 2010. He qualified for that, by the way, because both of his parents are Irish. So even though he grew up in Birmingham, his parents are Irish. So he qualified for that and won that title back in 2010. By 2012, he became the British champion. He beat the former IBF junior welterweight champion of the world from Sheffield, Junior Witter. That was at York Hall. I remember that well because I was at that fight. Frankie Gavin won. It wasn't a great fight, but he won it clearly. And I remember it well because after I was invited to the dressing room to meet him, I met Frankie Gavin and his brother. Seemed like a really cool guy. Yeah. So much was expected, and he won the British title, and people said, right, he's going to go on to do big things. The next year, Frankie Gavin, he won the Commonwealth title, annexed that title by beating another good fighter, Manchester's Denton Vassell. I think he broke Denton Vassell's jaw in winning that fight. And then he made a couple of defenses of that title. And then he came up against an Italian African by the name of Leonard Bundo, a fight for the European title. A fight that Frankie Gavin was expected to win. I mean, Leonard Bundo was a good fighter, but he was aging at that time. And a lot of people saw that as a very winnable fight for Frankie Gavin. Unfortunately, he came up short and lost the fight. It was seen as a bit of a disappointment because, as I said, he was expected to win that fight. But to be fair to Frankie Gavin, he bounced back by retaining the British and Commonwealth titles by defeating Bradley Skeet. He was another good domestic fighter. And in 2015, Frankie Gavin was able to get a world title shot, which kind of came out of the blue a little bit, but he got a world title shot. He challenged Sheffield's Kell Brook, Special K, for the world IBF welterweight title. But he was stopped in 6 rounds. I remember watching it. It's a fairly one-sided fight. Kell Brook, another excellent fighter, really good fighter, dominated Frankie Gavin from start to finish, dropped him a couple of times, stopped him in the 6th round. And it was already becoming clear by then that Frankie Gavin was not going to be that guy to go on and win the world titles. He'd already started to look a bit shop-worn, if you ask me. And after the Kell Brook fight, I think he had another 6 fights. And he lost 2 of those by stoppage. He got stopped by Sam Aggington, who's also from Birmingham, good fighter. Not at the same level in terms of skill as Frankie Gavin, but a lot bigger, at that time a lot stronger, and pretty much dominated Frankie Gavin and beat him clearly. And back in 2018, which was a year or so after losing to Eggington, Frankie Gavin got an unexpected shot at the European title that was being held at the time by Kerman Larraga, a Spanish guy from Bilbao, good fighter, tough guy. Frankie Gavin was managed to get a European title shot against him. However, he was stopped in that fight, and Frankie Gavin retired after that. I think he retired in 2020, about a year and a half after the Larraga fight. He retired with a professional record of 30 fights, 26 wins, 15 of those 26 wins by KO. He had 4 losses. So, you know, I mean, that is a decent record. And of course, he won titles. He won the Irish lightweight title. He won the British and Commonwealth welterweight titles. But I think it's fair to say, though, you chat to people who know their boxing, and it was around at that time, they will tell you that despite those wins and those titles, Frankie Gavin probably underachieved, didn't quite fulfill his potential. And there are several factors that people attribute to that. I mean, the first one was discipline and making weight. Right from his amateur days, I mean, I alluded earlier to the failed making of weight that cost him a chance to participate in the 2008 Olympics. Well, that same lack of discipline with regards to weight continued into Frankie Gavin's professional career. He had problems making weight for quite a few of his fights. And one of the main reasons for that was his discipline outside of the ring in terms of his diet. It's well known that Frankie Gavin likes to drink. He also is a consumer, or was a consumer, of junk food. He'd said so himself on several occasions. And he liked to party. I mean, Frankie Gavin's nickname was Funtime Frankie. So that tells you a lot about the man. If he has a nickname by the name of Funtime Frankie, I think that tells you a lot. So yeah. Also, he had a number of personal issues. I mean, I was aware at the time he had domestic issues with his partner or his wife or something like that. I know that there were problems there. Um, he spoke also of overcoming depression. I know he had some issues of depression relating to the passing of his grandmother. And I know his mum had cancer, which obviously is a great shame. That's very understandable that somebody would be very upset over those things. But he did admit to going through bouts of depression during his career. He also had some out the ring incidents. In 2015, he was suspended by the British Boxing Board of Control after admitting his part in a barroom brawl, which resulted in a prison sentence and community service. I think it was a suspended prison sentence, actually, and community service. This further disrupted his career. And yeah, so a combination of those factors unfortunately meant that Frankie Gavin didn't quite fulfill the potential that a lot of people had for him. And to go full circle, to witness him participating in bare knuckle boxing, I've got to admit, I was very uneasy in watching it. I felt very uncomfortable. I mean, him losing in the first round, I think it was the first minute he lost this fight to, was a really bad look. I watched it kind of through my hands over my face thinking, wow, I can't believe this has happened to somebody like this. So yeah, man, it's a shame because Frankie Gavin was, as I said before, very talented guy. He had the potential to go a long, long way. As a lot of people predicted he would become a world champion, which he never did. And I guess his story is a reminder that dedication and lifestyle are as critical as skill when it comes to being successful, especially in a sport like boxing. So yeah, and for me to witness him or to see him being, smoked in the first round of a bare knuckle fight, I just found that very disappointing, man. And listen, man, I hope, I mean, it's not for me to say, but I hope he discontinues this bare knuckle thing. I do think it's beneath him. Not so much because I'm having a go at bare knuckle boxing. It's just that when you consider what this guy's done in his career, I think there are far more productive things he could be doing in the sport. Like I said, I thought Frankie Gavin was training fighters. I'm sure I saw an article or saw something online of him training fighters, having his own gym. I don't know what's happened to that situation, but I would hope that he discontinues with the bare knuckle fighting and, as I said earlier, find something a bit more productive to do. But anyway, that's all from me. Thanks so much for watching the video. Really appreciate it. If you're new to the channel, please like, share and subscribe. Please spread the word about LL Sports TV. I'm out and I'll catch you on the next one.